Hi, welcome to Talking Books and Stuff, the program that talks all about books and writing and stuff. Here's your host, Dennis Rimmer.
And hello again. It's another episode of Talking Books and Writing and Stuff. Today, oh my gosh, it's almost June in Saskatchewan and probably everywhere else. Yes, it's the spring of 2023. With us is Naomi Hansen. Naomi, how you doing? And by the way, where are you based in Saskatchewan, if indeed you are?
Yes, I'm in Saskatchewan. I live in Saskatoon, grew up in Saskatoon, so that's where I'm based today, and I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me. This is actually my first podcast episode ever, so I'm very excited.
And this is about our 210th or 15th or so, because we're so far ahead we don't know what we're doing. We're talking to Naomi Hansen from Saskatoon because of this beautiful book I have in front of me called Only in Saskatchewan, Recipes and Stories from the Province's Best Loved Eateries. So, Naomi, why did you think this kind of book was needed and why did you do it?
Yeah, so the idea for the book came to me probably actually about 6 years ago now. I was in Edmonton and I was browsing in an Edmonton bookstore and came across a book called Edmonton Cooks and Signature Recipes from the City's Best Chefs. Authors for that are Leanne Brown and Tina Fays. And I looked through that book in the bookstore and it was kind of like a light bulb moment for me. I remember thinking, does Saskatchewan have something like this, or does Saskatoon have something like this? And when I Googled it, there was no such book at the time. Initially, I was just sort of interested because I do love to cook and bake myself. So, I would totally have bought a book like that, but nothing came up. And so I just sort of, left the bookstore, tucked the idea away in the back of my mind. And then it was later on, probably about 2019, I had been working in Saskatoon doing writing and editing for a number of sources for years, and really had sort of a front row seat to the local food scene here, and saw that there had been a lot of change and growth, and felt that a book like this would be a good fit to really highlight and showcase the culinary scene here and what we have to offer. So that's sort of, it's not necessarily a unique concept. These types of books have been done before. There's a Montreal Cooks one, there's a Toronto Cooks. The the publisher who did this book, TouchWood Editions, has a Victoria book that's all about different brunch restaurants and stuff like that. So this one, when I was thinking about the concept though, I kind of thought, okay, we could do Saskatoon, or we could do Regina, or I could expand that to Saskatchewan as a whole, which ended up being the direction I went with. And I have to say, I'm very happy that I went in that direction because it really allowed me to sort of expand the entire scope of what I was working with, whether that's the history or some of the photos that were included. But that's sort of where, the idea came from, and sort of I took that concept and made it into something that I thought would be workable for Saskatchewan.
And the book is Only in Saskatchewan, Recipes and Stories from the Province's Best Loved Eateries. I want to keep repeating that title because I want folks to go out and get it. And where is the book available, by the way? Pretty much everywhere?
Yeah, the book is available everywhere. All of your bookstores are probably going to carry it, although there are lots of different places, not just bookstores, but there's lots of gift shops, tourism centers, little local market stuff all across the province that are also carrying the book, in addition to bookstores. So on my website, which is naomihansen.ca, I do have a list of where you can shop locally, whether that's in Saskatchewan. There's a bunch of places on there. And also some various locations out of province too. And then of course, larger sellers like Indigo carries it, Amazon, that kind of thing. But of course, I encourage you to shop local and find a store close to you if that's an option.
Exactly. I was going to ask when you got the idea, but we've already covered that thing. So how did you go about doing? Like, you must have visited all of these places individually?
Yes. Yeah, it was a big process. I would say probably in total everything took about a year. I started off by doing 6 weeks of research to sort of see what I wanted to include. Really, that was 6 weeks of a deep dive into Saskatchewan restaurants, bakeries, cafes, eateries, everything like that. I did quite a lot of online research. I talked to a lot of different people throughout the province. And I also, once people found out what I was doing, I received recommendations from people, with places that they thought should be included. And I had an initial list of about 80. In the book, there's 40. And, I had hoped to include, I would say I was aiming for about 50, but this was also going on during the pandemic. So there was, some reasons there that it was, I didn't end up including the full 50 that I wanted. But basically, once I had that list pared down of who I was going to include, I reached out and asked them, and then got the ball rolling, and that was sort of it. But from there, I visited all of the locations with Garrett Kendall, who did the photos. And yeah, we we were road tripping around the province. We visited every spot. I got to go to a lot of places I hadn't been, some corners of the province I hadn't really spent much time in. And visiting the places was really important to me. I wanted all of the recipes to be photographed on site in the eateries featured. I wanted there to be recognizable elements in the photos. So let's say you've eaten at one of the restaurants, maybe you'll recognize the place setting, or maybe you'll recognize, the dinnerware that they have there, that kind of thing. And I wanted to, of course, visit these places to get a sense of them. I mean, those visits really informed all of my research and interviews and that kind of thing. So, that was huge. And we would also be on the road, and Garrett would stop and say, "Ooh, let's get a photo of that." That's kind of the luxury of being able to travel around and visit all the spots, was we also were able to get such gorgeous photos of the province at different times of year, and in all different areas. So the traveling was huge to the process.
And the pictures, they're fantastic. So Garrett Kendall is your photographer, right? So how long did it take then to get the whole project finalized?
So I was working with Garrett. I had reached out to him right from the beginning, and then we traveled together to all of the spots. Now, we sort of did everything. It probably took 8 months in total for all the visits and sort of the whole process of that. And we were, we would go visit a place, and then we would not go anywhere for a couple of weeks, and then go to another place. And then, it was sort of, I guess, spaced out through that period of time. But Garrett, I mean, his work is incredible, and a lot of that photography was done with a drone. So he does drone photography, and his business is called King Rose Visuals. I should definitely mention that. But he does drone photography, and so that's why there's some photos in there that are just so stunning. And I mean, you wouldn't get to see that from standing on the ground, but because he had the equipment for that, we were able to include all of those photos. And I think that the photos really bring the whole book to life. I mean, they give the recipes, and they give the places, and all of the restaurants really the vibrancy that they deserve. And all of the food photos were also done on site, as I mentioned, but because I wanted them to include elements from each place, I would sometimes bring props if I thought that, there was a certain way I wanted to photograph the item. But when we got there, Garrett and I would just kind of be like, okay, what are we going to do? It was very much improvised. And we would take a look at what they had to offer, and we would put the shoots together very much on the spot to sort of capture the place once we had actually, arrived and seen what we could possibly do. So, I mean, I don't know that you would be able to tell that those photo shoots are improvised from looking at the photos. I mean, they turned out gorgeous, but I think that's just kind of a cool behind the scenes piece to know that, I'll give you an example. We were at Wolf Willow Winery, which is near Outlook, and we were doing this camping sort of themed shoot with one of their popcorn recipe, which is a sort of a snack recipe in the book. And there was all of this antique camping equipment on the wall on display as the decor in the restaurant. And we looked at it and we were just kind of like, can we use some of that? And they said, sure. So we just, we took these items off the wall. There was like an old cast iron pan, an antique red lantern, and just incorporated them into the photo shoot. And it has this like amazing rustic camping feel to that photo. And that was, entirely done on the spot.
And we've got the book, like I said, in front of me. It's called Only in Saskatchewan, Recipes and Stories from the Province's Best Loved Eateries. Before I flip through it and ask you some questions, I have to ask you about Tree Abraham, who's apparently involved in the design of the book, because we've had her as a guest on our podcast.
Yeah, I saw that actually. Yes, Tree did the full design of the book, the inside and the cover. And I mean, when I first saw the designs, they were just, I was blown away. It's gorgeous. She really captured the, everything I wanted the book to be, with the layout, and the cover design as well is, very eye-catching, very beautiful. So yeah, great job.
Great. And it's from TouchWood Publishing Books. Are they in Saskatoon?
No, TouchWood Editions is a publisher based in BC.
Right.
They've been around for over 30 years, and they do lots of different types of food books. They do a variety of books, but lots of cookbooks, food-related books. They did Renee Coleman. She's a Saskatchewan author. She has two cookbooks. All the Sweet Things and Vegetables, a Love Story. So they've done a lot of food books. Yeah, definitely right. Their thing.
Okay, I was thinking of something else that started with a T, I guess. Okay, so let's flip through the book. Right now I'm open to Maple Hill Farm, Kitchen and Marketplace. It's in Nipawin. What can you tell us about that destination?
Oh, Maple Hill is such a lovely spot. It's just outside of Nipawin, and if you are looking for a place that is a destination in itself, Maple Hill is, checks all the boxes. They've got this beautiful restaurant. They have a garden that is right beside the restaurant. You can often see, the chef wandering over to grab something from the garden for the dinner menu. Just a real, true farm-to-table experience for people who are dining there. And then they've got, they have a fire pit outside. You can walk around the property. It's beautiful. It's, right. There's tons of nature, gorgeous trees, that kind of thing. They also have an event space, actually, that was under construction when I was there, but is now up and running. And they do weddings. Everything's catered on site. So that's a huge draw of that venue as well. But really, that is a place that you would love to go to spend an evening, enjoying good food that's locally sourced. Some of it might have been grown right beside the restaurant where you're enjoying your food. Really one of the most sort of as farm to table spots as you can really get.
Yeah, and the recipe, the first one I see here is Maple Hill's Bourbon Brown Butter Cake with sour cherry topping and hot sour cream glaze. I'm sure you sampled this, did you not?
Yes. Yeah, that's one of the perks of doing a project like this. I tried everything in the book.
Well, thank you, Naomi, for that information about the Maple Hill farm out there in the, is it Nipawin area, Naomi?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just outside Nipawin, yeah.
Yeah, and we're talking with, of course, Naomi Hansen, only in Saskatchewan, all about special dining and catering places, which brings me to my next question. Tell us about Yellow Fender.
Yellow Fender, yes. So that one actually is a location that unfortunately had closed during the process of doing the book.
Oh, no.
But we included, it was originally located at Christopher Lake. And it had been there for nearly 2 decades. It was a really popular spot at the lake. They also did catering, and it was owned by a family Heidi and her daughter were running it when it closed. But yeah, they ended up closing the location during the process of writing the book. So we ended up including one of their recipes kind of as a tribute, because it had been such sort of a pillar in the Christopher Lake community for so long. But unfortunately, you can't visit that one anymore. But you can make their recipes. So
yeah, and it's autumn apple and cheddar scones with rosemary pepper butter is what we have.
Yes.
Okay. I'm flipping through the book here. Okay, how about the Wadena Bakery and Coffee Nook? Are they still open, I hope?
The Wadena Bakery and Coffee Nook?
Yes.
Did you say?
Yes.
Yes, they are. Yeah. That one is a Prairie Bakery, obviously, in Wadena. And have you had their Boston cream donuts? That's what they're really, really known for.
No, I haven't
Okay.
been through Wadena, and that was about it.
Okay, so that bakery has been there for, I believe it's almost 60 years, family owned. And of course, one of the few remaining family owned Prairie bakeries left. So it really is a gem in Saskatchewan, but they're very well known for their donuts, and particularly their Boston cream donuts, which I tried to get that recipe, but they wanted to hold on to it, which is totally fair. We have a different one of their donut recipes in the book instead. But yeah, I mean, their donuts have sort of become a tourist attraction for Wadena. People drive all the way just to sample one of the delicious donuts and grab a coffee. So if you're ever driving through, it's definitely worth stopping at. They have a ton of different donuts, not just the Boston creams, but lots of different options.
Speaking of which, that was my next question. Were people reluctant to share their secrets? So obviously some people were reluctant to give away their special trade tips.
Yeah, I actually thought that it would be more of a problem than it was. There was really only a few cases where, someone didn't want to give away a recipe at all, and so I had asked them to participate in the book, and they didn't want to share a recipe, so, they didn't end up being in the book for that reason. There were a couple cases where places, they wanted to participate, but they didn't want to share a certain recipe, maybe a signature recipe, or sort of a family secret recipe. And that's completely understandable. I mean, if that's your signature item at the bakery or restaurant that you've been running for years, I mean, I understand you don't want to give that up. So yeah, in some cases we picked a different recipe, and all of the recipes included in the book were very much collaborative choices between me and the establishment owners. I would, approach them with an idea or, a few different options of recipes I thought we could include, and we would have a discussion about it. And sometimes, they were like, yes, let's do that. And sometimes they would suggest something else for a different reason. And in some cases, there were certain recipes I wanted, that I had identified from the beginning, but we chose a different one because, maybe they featured ingredients that weren't going to be possible for people to get in the average grocery store or even a specialty shop here. And of course, that's the whole idea. I wanted people to actually be able to make these items at home. So in some cases where, there was an ingredient that wouldn't be accessible for people to buy here, or maybe there was a cooking method or specialized equipment that most people wouldn't have, we in those cases went with, a different option for a recipe.
Great. Okay. And carrying on, I'm flipping through it. Grain and Pulse Bakery Cafe in Imperial, Saskatchewan, with a town of 360 people.
Yeah. That one is such a great spot. It is a sort of, as the name suggests, a plant-forward bakery and cafe. They have tons of vegetarian options, and really, like many places featured in the book, definitely another place that works with local, seasonal, provincial ingredients. And the owner, Tracy Kelly Wilcox, she, her food is just fantastic. She has a very extensive training, and then moved back to Saskatchewan after sort of working in the food industry for years. So she started with catering in Imperial, which then turned into Grain and Pulse. And really, they're known for, they've got a lot of really great vegetarian items, but also her pastries she's very well known for those. So you definitely want to call ahead if you're driving in for the pastries, because they sell quickly. And so if you're driving there just for those, definitely call ahead to see if she'll set some aside for you. Otherwise, you might not make it there in time to catch any, especially if it's a Saturday.
Now, all of the dishes that are featured in the book, have you tried them all?
Yes. Yeah, I tried everything. In some cases, I tried them when we were actually there, when we were done taking the photos. In other cases, I had a team of people helping me to test the recipes. So I was doing quite a number of the tests myself, and other people were helping me with those as well. So I made several of these dishes at home and got to try them again that way. But that's definitely one of the perks of working on a project like this is sampling all of the food.
Right.
No complaints there.
So actually they're test-driven, the recipes. You actually went into your kitchen, let's say, and put them together and then found out what works and what doesn't work, instead of just listing off a list of, this and this, and then add this and then cook for 20 minutes. So what you're saying is that you actually did them, and so this is the best way to do these recipes, is the way that Naomi has them in the book, right?
Yeah, so part of the process of this is when I would receive some of the recipes, many of them have to be scaled down. So these recipes, when they're made in, the bakery or the restaurant, whatever it is, they're making a very large quantity of course, whatever the item is, right?
Yeah.
So that was part of it, was that they had to be scaled down. Something that serves 4 to 6 people, let's say, something that's going to be attainable for a home cook. So that was part of the testing process, was either I would receive the recipe scaled down from someone, or I would scale it down myself. But either way, I wanted to try them all in their sort of home cooked version to make sure that they worked. And going through that process too, there were some times where I would make something and it would become apparent to me that I didn't have the specialized equipment, or we needed to add an option. Well, if you don't have a deep fryer, this is how you can do this on your stove, that kind of thing. And that there's tons of cases of that where through the testing process, I added extra instructions and whatnot. And of course, all of that was done in collaboration with the owners. They were receiving so many emails from me back and forth over the many months of back and forth recipe editing and testing and whatnot. But I think it really helps to, ensure that the recipes turn out when you make them, because you don't want to make something at home and it doesn't turn out how you've had it in the restaurant before, That's kind of the thing about these recipes, is people might make them and they already know what the item tastes like when they've had it at the restaurant or the bakery. So that home version of it has to be spot on.
Exactly. So one more before we wrap it up. Odd Couple Restaurant in Saskatoon.
Yes, that's actually a particular favorite for my family. We frequent there a lot. They've been around. They actually just celebrated their 9-year anniversary, so they've almost been in Saskatoon for a decade here. But Odd Couple has sort of a really interesting approach with blending prairie ingredients and really locally sourced ingredients with Cantonese, Vietnamese, and Japanese flavors and ingredients. So when you go there, you can get, fried rice, but it'll have a farm fresh egg on top and bacon from, a farm in Saskatchewan, that kind of thing. So really a blend of those two. And it's very popular. I would say it's one of Saskatoon's most popular restaurant. They have, delicious menu. They do, during the pandemic, actually, they started something called a traveling menu. So because people couldn't travel physically, they were doing sort of a rotating menu where they would feature dishes from different places, they had been to previously, and as a way for people to sort of experience travel through food. And they've continued to do that. So they have some features like that on the go all the time. But really, I would say if you're visiting Saskatoon, Odd Couple is a must try.
And that is just a sample of the examples from Only in Saskatchewan, recipes and stories from the province's best loved eateries. It was compiled and taste tested by Naomi Hansen, photography by Garrett Kendall. Naomi, any other projects in the works?
Well, I am thinking and plotting my next book, but nothing that I'm prepared to say yet. But I would say for that, stay tuned to my social media and website. And when I'm ready to start, I will let everyone know.
Okay, and that's Naomi Hansen, NaomiHansen. NaomiHansen.ca is the website. Naomi, thank you very much for these tasty tips.
Oh, of course. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for visiting with us today. This is Talking Books and Stuff with Dennis Rimmer. Contact him at dennis@talkingbooks.tk. Thank you, and may all the good news be yours. Oh, and don't forget to check out his book, The Great Canadian Notebook, available across Canada and at amazon.ca.